Welcome to our deep dive into AI. And today we're going to be talking about something called AI distillation.
It's super fascinating.
Yeah, it really is. So imagine you could take like a massive, super complex AI and kind of shrink it down, into a more efficient model. Like, how would that change the game?
It really is a paradigm shift, and we're seeing it play out in a bunch of different ways.
Yeah, and one of the things that's really caught our eye is this company, DeepSeek. They're using distillation to do some pretty incredible things, and in a fraction of the time, and cost that you would normally expect. Like they built a model that rivals some of the biggest names in AI,
Yeah, in just 2 months.
and for under $6 million for the final training,
Yeah, for the final training phase.
which is crazy when you think about it.
And the really cool thing is they're not just copying what others have done. They're bringing real innovation to the table, building upon distillation to create something totally new.
It's like they found a shortcut, and now everyone's trying to catch up. But here's the thing. Instead of keeping their secrets locked away, they decided to open source their model.
It's huge.
Yep, they're basically giving away the blueprint.
Which is a pretty big deal when you think about how companies like OpenAI have traditionally kept their models proprietary.
Right, it's a total shift in thinking. And Arvind Jain, the CEO of Glean, put it perfectly. He said, "My joke is everybody's model is open source. They just don't know it yet."
It's funny because it's true.
It really is. So it feels like we're at a turning point in how AI is developed and shared.
For sure.
And speaking of sharing, we've got all these stories of other researchers and developers doing some crazy things with distillation.
Like you have researchers at Berkeley building a near state-of-the-art reasoning model for just $450 in 19 hours.
That's insane.
It is. And then you have Stanford and the University of Washington doing it in 26 minutes for under $50.
It's mind-blowing. And then there's the 24-hour challenge by Hugging Face, where they built an entire research agent.
It seems like everyone's getting in on the action.
And that's what's so exciting about all this. It's like AI is finally becoming accessible to anyone, even if you don't have a billion-dollar budget.
Yeah, it's leveling the playing field, which begs the question, what does this mean for the big guys like Google and Microsoft? They've poured billions into their AI research. Do they lose their edge if smaller teams can just catch up using distillation?
That's a great question. And honestly, it's not that simple. While distillation is amazing for replication, it might not be the key to achieving what's considered the holy grail of AI, artificial general intelligence, or AGI.
AGI being the concept of an AI that can basically do anything a human can.
Exactly. It's been the dream for a long time, and companies like OpenAI are all in on being the first to get there, no matter the cost.
They call it their AGI at all costs strategy.
Which is kind of wild when you think about it. So they're still going full steam ahead with these massive models in closed development. But then you have DeepSeek over here. Like their R1 model costs a measly 2.19 per million tokens to run, compared to OpenAI's $60 for the same thing.
That's like almost 30 times cheaper.
I know. It's insane. It completely changes the economics of AI.
It does.
And here's another twist. Some of our sources are saying that with distillation data, might not be as important as it used to be.
Yeah, if models can just learn from each other, effectively, the size of your data set might not matter as much.
It's a wild thought. Like, what if you didn't need access to all that data to build powerful AI?
That's what companies like Glean are exploring.
Right. They're building platforms that make AI accessible and applicable to real-world problems, regardless of data limitations.
And Glean's CEO, Arvind Jain, believes there's no plateau in sight. He says there's no plateauing on any front, by the way, when it comes to AI.
So the landscape is shifting constantly, and it's exciting to watch it all unfold. But let's take a step back for a second and talk about how AI itself is evolving. Like, we're seeing some crazy advancements in its ability to reason, analyze, and even understand complex processes.
It's what some people are calling the reasoning revolution.
Right. It's like AI is learning to think
For itself.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's changing everything.
A great example is DeepSeek's R1 model. It has this feature that lets you see the AI's thought process as it works through problems. It's kind of like peeking into its mind.
It's fascinating.
It really is. And this is key for building trust and transparency, especially as AI becomes more integrated into our lives.
Absolutely. We need to be able to understand how AI is making decisions, especially when it comes to things that impact our lives.
Exactly. So this reasoning revolution is something we're going to explore in more detail later. But for now, let's shift gears and talk about the elephant in the room, open source.
Open source has been a game changer, and with DeepSeek's decision to open source their model, it's created a ripple effect throughout the industry.
Researchers and platforms like Hugging Face are following suit, and it's really making us question the closed-source approach of companies like OpenAI.
It's like a philosophical debate about the nature of knowledge. Should these powerful AI models be controlled or shared for the benefit of everyone?
It's a tough question, and one we'll unpack more thoroughly in a bit, but for now we'll leave you with that thought.
Something to ponder.
Exactly. Stay with us.
Yeah, it's a tough one for sure. There are definitely strong arguments on both sides. Like on the one hand, you have the whole safety thing, making sure these powerful AI models aren't misused.
Especially with all the concerns about AI being used to create fake content or manipulate information. It's definitely a valid worry.
Yeah, and then on the other hand, open sourcing allows for crazy fast innovation and collaboration, and it makes these advancements accessible to way more people. It's a tough trade-off.
It really is, and it seems like the pressure's on for companies like OpenAI to change their stance on open source. I mean, even Sam Altman, their CEO, recently admitted that they might have been wrong about it.
That's a big deal coming from him, especially since he's been a huge advocate for closed development.
Yeah, it feels like a dam breaking. Once the flow of information starts, it's hard to stop. And for developers and businesses, this open source wave is a game changer. They're not stuck with just one provider anymore.
And that puts pressure on pricing, too.
Exactly. Open source keeps those proprietary players in check. They have to stay competitive both in terms of price and performance.
It makes for a much more dynamic and innovative environment. And with models like DeepSeek's R1 being so much cheaper than the competition, it really lowers the barrier to entry for smaller players.
Yeah, it's like the cost of entry just went way down. So now we could see an explosion of new AI-powered applications and services.
As more and more people can actually afford to experiment and build with this technology, it's pretty exciting.
It really is, and it makes you wonder what kind of world-changing ideas are going to come out of this.
It's like we're on the verge of something truly revolutionary, and open source is a big part of that. It promotes transparency and collaboration, which are super important for responsible AI development.
Right, by working together and sharing knowledge, we can create better, more reliable AI systems that benefit everyone.
Exactly. It's a win-win. But that being said, this doesn't mean the big tech companies are going away anytime soon. They still have tons of resources and expertise.
Yeah, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, they're all investing heavily in AI research and development, and they're going to continue to shape the industry.
What's changing is the nature of the game. It's not just about having the biggest model or the most data anymore.
It's about building the best ecosystems, platforms, and tools that utilize AI in innovative and responsible ways.
And that creates a more collaborative and competitive environment, which ultimately benefits everyone.
And speaking of innovation, we can't forget about the incredible advancements we're seeing in AI reasoning. We touched on it earlier, but it's worth diving a little deeper into what this reasoning revolution really means for the future of AI.
I agree. The progress we're seeing is mind-blowing. These models are going beyond simple instructions and actually starting to understand context logic and problem solving.
It's like they're learning to think more like us.
Analyzing situations, weighing different perspectives, coming up with logical solutions.
Exactly. And this has huge implications for how we can use AI to solve complex problems and automate tasks that used to require human intelligence.
Like, think about the thought process feature in DeepSeek's R1 model. Being able to see how the AI reaches its conclusions is so important for building trust and transparency.
Especially when AI is making important decisions.
Exactly. We need to understand how it's working and make sure it's being used ethically and responsibly.
And as AI reasoning continues to improve, we'll probably see a lot more sophisticated AI agents being developed.
Capable of automating even more complex tasks, from managing workflows to analyzing data to maybe even helping with creative endeavors.
It's pretty wild to think about the potential impact on different industries and the workforce as a whole.
Definitely something worth exploring more in the future.
For sure. But shifting gears a bit, let's talk about data for a minute. Traditionally, it's been seen as the fuel that powers AI. Well, more data, the better.
Right, but with distillation, that might be changing.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, if models can learn effectively from each other, the size of your data set might not be as crucial anymore.
It's like saying you don't need the biggest library in the world to be incredibly knowledgeable. You can learn just as much from someone who's already studied all those books.
Exactly. And this is huge for businesses that don't have access to those massive data sets. They can still leverage the knowledge that's out there.
And that's where companies like Glean are doing amazing work. They're building platforms that make it easier for anyone to access and use AI regardless of how much data they have.
They're making it a more level playing field.
It's like creating an educational system where everyone has access to the knowledge and tools they need to learn and grow.
I love that analogy. And as these techniques continue to develop, I think we'll see even more innovative approaches to AI that challenge our current assumptions about data.
It's definitely shaking things up. But before we wrap up, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier about OpenAI's AGI at all costs strategy. What exactly does that mean?
Basically, it's their commitment to achieving artificial general intelligence as quickly as possible, even if it means using a ton of resources and keeping things closed source.
So they're going all in on building those big complex models, while others are finding ways to get similar results with smaller, more efficient distilled models.
Exactly. They believe that achieving AGI first is super important for shaping its development and making sure it benefits
It's
everyone.
like two different philosophies clashing.
Yeah, you have the pursuit of ultimate intelligence on one hand and the democratization of AI on the other.
It's fascinating to see how this plays out, and it raises some big questions about the future of AI research and development.
It's a debate that's going to continue for a while, and it's exciting to be a part of it.
I agree, this whole deep dive has been an incredible journey so far, and I'm sure our listeners are feeling the same way. But before we get too carried away, let's bring things back down to earth for a moment.
Good point. Amidst all this excitement about AI, we need to remember that these are powerful tools, and we need to use them responsibly.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in all the hype, but we got to remember that AI has a real impact on society. Yeah, as it gets more powerful and easier to access, we have to make sure it's used for good, not for bad stuff.
Absolutely. We have to think about the ethical side of things, the potential for job displacement, and making sure AI aligns with human values. It's not just about the technology itself.
It's a big conversation, and one that everyone needs to be a part of: researchers, developers, policymakers, everyone. But even with all the challenges, I'm still optimistic about the future of AI.
Yeah, me too. I mean, AI has the potential to solve some of the world's biggest problems, like climate change, disease, poverty. It can help us make better decisions and create new opportunities.
It feels like we're at the beginning of something huge.
It does, and it's up to us to make sure this new era is a good one, one where everyone benefits.
Well said. This deep dive into AI distillation has been pretty eye-opening. We've covered a lot of ground, from the technical stuff to the impact on open source, the reasoning revolution, the changing role of data.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride, and hopefully our listeners are walking away with a better understanding of what's happening in the world of AI.
We've seen how distillation is making AI more accessible, accelerating innovation, and pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
And we've talked about the ethical considerations that we need to keep in mind as we move forward.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, the question for you listening is this: how are you going to engage with this world of AI that's constantly changing? Are you going to sit back and watch? Or are you going to jump in and help shape the future of this incredible technology? It's up to you.
And as we keep exploring this amazing world of AI, one thing's for sure, the future is full of possibilities, and the only limit is our imagination.
That's a great note to end on. So thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of AI distillation.
It's been a pleasure.
And until next time, keep exploring and keep asking questions.